You awaken in darkness, your body cold against damp stone, the air heavy with the smell of mildew and despair. Chains clink faintly in the shadows, though you cannot yet tell if they hold you. Every instinct screams danger, yet there is no one in sight, only silence, broken by distant echoes you cannot place. You have no trial, no explanation, no mercy to cling to. The world outside the dungeon has forgotten you, and inside, time moves differently, stretching minutes into hours. Survival depends on memory, wits, and patience. You wake up cold. Not the kind of cold that comes from winter air or an open window, but the deep, unmoving cold of stone that has never once felt sunlight. Your back aches before your eyes even open. Something hard presses against your shoulder blades, and your fingers touch rough ground covered in damp grit. You try to move. A metallic sound answers you first. Your hands don't travel far. Iron bites your wrists. A chain, short and heavy, pulls tight with a dull clink that echoes longer than it should in the darkness around you. The sound travels far, much farther than the small motion you made. That is when you realize something important. This room is not small. It is only very, very dark. The air smells of wet earth, rust, and something older, a stale thickness like soaked wood and forgotten water. Breathing through your nose feels wrong, yet breathing through your mouth tastes worse. You do not remember arriving. There was no judge, no shouting crowd, no dramatic accusation, just sleep. And now this, somewhere distant, water drips slowly, not fast enough to count seconds, only enough to measure patience. Each drop lands with a hollow sound, reminding you that time exists even if you cannot see it. You shift again, carefully this time. Your ankle answers with another chain. So you are not here by mistake. In the medieval world, prisons were not built for punishment. They were built for waiting, waiting for ransom, waiting for confession, waiting for someone important to decide whether you still existed. Many prisoners never learned which one applied to them. You sit upright slowly, your head brushing cold stone behind you. The ceiling feels low here, but the darkness suggests space beyond your reach. Your fingers explore the wall, uneven blocks mortared centuries ago, damp and sweating, no straw bedding, no wooden bench, only ground. That tells you something else. You are not a guest of the castle. You are beneath it. Castles were layered like stories, nobles above, servants in the middle, storage below, and beneath all of them, the forgotten level where people were kept instead of housed. Dungeons rarely appeared in official records. They were not rooms meant to be described, only used. Your eyes slowly begin to invent shapes in the dark. Not true sight, just the mind refusing blindness. The blackness softens into gradients. A darker square ahead might be a doorway, or simply hope. You listen. At first, nothing. Then breathing. Not yours. Soft, uneven. Somewhere across the room. You freeze, and the breathing freezes too, as if both of you suddenly realized the other was alive. Minutes pass in complete silence. Neither of you speaks. In many medieval prisons, prisoners avoided talking the first night. Words could bring attention. Attention could bring guards. Guards rarely visited without purpose. Eventually, footsteps sound above, muffled through layers of stone, but unmistakable boots crossing a wooden floor far overhead. Life continues, normally somewhere else. People eat, laugh, argue, sleep, completely unaware that directly beneath them, human beings sit in darkness without knowing why. You feel thirst before hunger. Your tongue sticks slightly to your teeth. Your lips crack when you swallow. The air itself seems to remove moisture instead of giving it. Time becomes impossible to measure. No sun reaches you. No bell signals hours. Medieval dungeons erased the day deliberately. Confusion weakened resistance. After only a short while, the mind stops organizing events. Thoughts drift. You try to remember the last thing you saw before sleep. It slips away from you. Memory feels distant, less solid than the stone pressing against your spine. Perhaps exhaustion hides it. Perhaps fear does. Or perhaps this place already begins its true purpose. Not pain, uncertainty. Because the most effective prison in history was not the tightest cell. It was the one where the prisoner did not know what would happen next. Far away, iron scrapes stone. A door opens somewhere in the dark passage beyond your sight. Light does not enter yet, but footsteps descend toward you slowly, carrying the weight of intention, and you realize your imprisonment has only just begun. The heavy iron key grates in the lock, a sound that has become the punctuation mark of my days. A groan of protesting metal follows as the door swings inward, revealing a darkness that seems to push back against the feeble light of my lantern. The air is thick, a cold, damp blanket woven from stone dust, stale sweat, and something older, something akin to forgotten despair. I step inside, my boots echoing on the worn flagstones, the door slamming shut behind me with a final, echoing thud that always feels like a hammer blow. My lantern casts long, dancing shadows that writhe and twist on the walls, making the dungeon feel alive, a breathing beast with stone ribs. I move slowly, deliberately. Haste has no place here. The path is familiar, etched into my muscle memory after countless journeys into this abyss. To my left, the first cell. The occupant, a man accused of treason, is a huddled shape in the corner, barely distinguishable from the shadows that cling to him. I unlatch the small window in his door. The screech of metal is sharp in the oppressive silence. I slide the wooden bowl of water and the hunk of coarse, dark bread onto the stone ledge. There is no sound from within, not even a rustle of straw. He has learned that silence is a currency here, perhaps the only one he has left. I secure the latch and move on. The corridor stretches before me, a tunnel into the earth's gut. The cells are stone wombs birthing nothing but time. Each one holds a story, a life truncated and left to wither. A thief, a heretic, a disgraced knight. Their faces blur in my memory, replaced by the universal mask of captivity. I am their keeper, their only link to the world of sun and sky, yet I am as much a part of this place as they are. My routine is their routine. My footsteps are the rhythm of their existence. I reach the end of the hall, the deepest part of the dungeon. Here, two men share a cell, a rarity reserved for when the upper levels are full. I've never understood the logic. Is it a mercy to grant company in this desolation, or is it a crueler torment to force two souls to watch each other fade? I place my lantern on a small jutting stone shelf, its light stabilizing, painting the scene in hues of gold and black. One prisoner, the older one, sits with his back against the far wall. His name is Alaric, a former scholar, they said. His eyes, even in this dim light, hold a spark of something that refuses to be extinguished. The other, much younger, lies on a thin straw pallet. Elias, a poacher caught on the king's land one too many times. I open the slot. The sound is a familiar intrusion. Elias stirs, propping himself up on one elbow. Alaric doesn't move, his gaze fixed on the rough stone floor. I slide in two bowls, two portions of bread. The silence stretches, thick and heavy. I linger for a moment, my hand resting on the cold iron of the door. It's a habit I've developed, a silent, unasked question. Finally, Elias speaks, his voice a dry rasp. "Did you see the moon tonight, jailer?" I don't answer. I never answer. My role is to provide sustenance, not conversation. Answering would be a breach of the unspoken contract between us. It would make me a person, and here, I am only a function. He doesn't seem to expect a reply. He takes a piece of his bread, breaks it, and holds it out to Alaric. The old scholar slowly raises his head, accepting the offering. "You should eat, old man," Elias murmurs, his voice softer now. "Need to keep your strength." Alaric chews slowly, methodically. After a long moment, he speaks, his voice surprisingly clear, like a bell that has not been rung in ages. "Strength for what, my boy?" "To better appreciate the damp, to count the stones in the wall with more vigor." Elias sighs, a sound that seems to carry the weight of the entire fortress. "To remember," the word hangs in the air between them. "Remember." Alaric gives a short, mirthless laugh. "Remembering is the curse, not the cure. I remember the scent of vellum and ink. I remember the taste of wine sweetened with honey. I remember my wife's hand in mine. What good does it do me now? These memories are ghosts. They haunt this cell more than I do." "They're not ghosts," Elias insists, his voice gaining a sliver of passion. "They're proof that there was a world before this, a world that's still out there. If you forget that, if you let the memories fade, then this is all you are. This stone, this straw. You die long before your heart stops beating." He takes a sip of water, the sound loud in the enclosed space. I remember the forest, the feeling of the sun through the leaves, the snap of a twig under my boot, the smell of pine after rain. I close my eyes, and I'm there. That's not a ghost. That's freedom. The only kind we have. Alaric is silent for a long time. He looks at the remaining piece of bread in his hand as if seeing it for the first time. "A freedom of the mind," he whispers, more to himself than to Elias. "A dangerous proposition. The mind can be a crueler prison than any built of stone." "Maybe," Elias concedes, but it's also the only key we'll ever see. He lies back down on his pallet, turning his face to the wall. The conversation is over. A brief flicker of humanity in the suffocating dark, now extinguished. I watch them for another moment. The scholar lost in his thoughts of a past he deems a curse. The poacher, clinging to his memories as a lifeline. To men, sharing a cage, but living in entirely different worlds. I pick up my lantern, the movement sending the shadows into another frantic dance. As I turn to leave, a sound reaches us, faint and distant, filtering down through tons of earth and stone. Ding dong, ding dong, the evening bell from the cathedral in the city. It's a sound from another universe, a world of open squares, of bustling markets, of people going home to warm fires and evening meals. For a single, suspended moment, the three of us are united in listening. The jailer and his prisoners, bound by a sound that reminds us of everything we are not. It speaks of time passing, of a world moving on without us. For Elias, it might be a note of hope, a reminder of the world he longs to rejoin. For Alaric, perhaps it is a funeral toll for a life already lost. For me, it is simply a signal. My work here is done. The day is ending. I slide the outer bolt into place. The sound is a heavy, final period on the day's sentence. I walk back down the corridor, my lantern light leading the way. My footsteps the only sound now, leaving the two men and their clashing philosophies alone in the profound and patient darkness. Tomorrow, I will return. I will bring water and bread, and the silence will begin again. The bell fades slowly, its vibration dissolving into the stone around you. For a moment after it stops, your ears keep listening as if the sound should continue. Silence in the dungeon never feels empty. It feels paused, like the world above is holding its breath before remembering you again. You shift your weight, and your joints protest immediately. The cold has settled into you. Not sharp anymore, but constant. Stone does not stab, it claims. It pulls warmth from skin patiently until your body forgets what comfort once felt like. Across the chamber, the other prisoner moves to Kai. You cannot see them clearly, only the faint outline where the grey slit of morning barely touches their shoulder. Neither of you speaks. In places like this, conversation forms slowly. Words are valuable, they spend energy. And energy must be saved, because no one knows how long they will remain. Time passes in the rhythm of drops and breathing. Eventually, footsteps return. The same measured descent, the same unhurried pace. The door opens again, and the lantern reclaims the darkness. Your eyes hurt less this time. They are already learning surrender. The guard repeats his routine without variation. Bucket, cup, bread. Routine was the true structure of a dungeon. Not walls, not chains, predictability. If a prisoner could not see the sun, they could still count survival by visits. Missed visits meant sickness or decision. Today the guard lingers slightly longer. He inspects the chains, not cruelly, simply ensuring they remain intact. One shackle at your ankle is tightened by a small turn of a key. The metal presses firmer against bone. You realize something important. You were not searched for weapons. You were secured for time. He moves to leave, then pauses and glances briefly toward the slit high in the wall. The light beyond it is brighter now, pale and thin. Rain, he murmurs. You had not known whether still existed. The door closes again. Water begins dripping more frequently, somewhere in the corridor beyond. Faster now, irregular, echoing faintly. Rain outside means moisture inside. The dungeon breathes with the world, whether it wishes to or not. The other prisoner finally speaks. First week is the longest. You swallow before answering. How long have you been here? A pause. I stopped counting after the cold changed. You do not understand. They continue, voice distant, as if remembering someone else's life. At first, you wait for explanation. Then you wait for release. After that, you only wait for the door to open for any reason at all. The words settle heavily. You notice marks on the stone beside you, shallow scratches. Not letters, just lines. Someone tried to measure days once. The marks stop abruptly halfway across the block. You wonder which day broke them. Hunger grows slowly, not painfully yet, just constantly present. The bread is gone too quickly, leaving your hands empty again. Medieval prisons fed just enough to keep breath inside lungs. Starvation was inefficient. Weakness was controllable. Your body begins conserving movement automatically. You sit still longer. Even your thoughts move slower, less sharp. Afternoon passes into dimness. Without sunlight entering fully, evening feels identical to morning. Only the faint gray fades again into full dark. The world outside cycles. Here it merely dims. You almost miss the new sound at first. Voices, not the guard. Multiple people above the corridor. Distant but clearer than street noise. They stop near the stair entrance overhead. A key turns somewhere you cannot see. Not your door, another door. Metal scrapes. A cry follows, short, surprised, quickly muffled. Then movement away again. The other prisoner exhales quietly. Someone remembered them. You feel a strange reaction, not relief, not fear. Something between. In a dungeon, attention was dangerous, but invisibility was worse. Night deepens. The rain continues faintly. Water collects in tiny channels across the floor, cold against your fingers when you shift. Your body wants sleep but cannot trust it. Every unfamiliar sound wakes you instantly. Rats return. The other prisoner mutters briefly in dreams. Then, much later, heavier steps descend. Not the usual guard. These steps carry weight and intention. More than one person. The lantern light arrives brighter this time, accompanied by another glow behind it. The door opens wider. Two figures stand there. The guard, and someone else cloaked against the rain. Boots cleaner, posture straighter. They do not enter fully. They simply look at you. You realize, with sudden clarity, that for the first time since waking, someone is not checking if you are alive. They are checking if you are the right person. The cloaked man does not step inside immediately. He stands just beyond the threshold, while the guard lifts the lantern higher, allowing its weak circle of light to settle over your face. You feel the attention before you fully meet his eyes, a careful, measuring look, as if he compares you to a description he carries only in memory. Rainwater drips from the hem of his cloak onto the stone. He says nothing for a long while. In the medieval world, words were rarely wasted in places like this. Speaking to a prisoner meant acknowledging them, and acknowledgement suggested importance. Silence preserved distance. Finally, he gestures. The guard kneels beside you and tilts your chin upward, not roughly, but firmly enough that you cannot look away. The lantern light hurts, but you hold still. The man leans slightly closer. You realize he is not searching for guilt. He is searching for certainty. After a moment, he exhales. Not disappointment, not relief, only decision. Not yet, he says quietly. The words make little sense, yet they carry weight. The guard releases your chin. You lower your gaze, and for the first time notice the man's gloves, fine leather, uncracked by labor. Not a soldier, not clergy either. Someone accustomed to giving instructions, rather than receiving them. He glances once toward the other prisoner in the darkness, but does not ask about them. Whatever interest brought him here belongs only to you. He turns, and both men leave. The door shuts again, heavier than before. The lantern disappears. Darkness returns, but it feels changed now. Less anonymous. Across the chamber, the other prisoner shifts closer to the faint slit of grey. You were looked at, they whisper. You nod, though they cannot see it. What does that mean? Another long pause. It means you belong to someone. The idea settles uncomfortably. In this place, belonging does not imply protection. It implies purpose, and purpose often leads upward through those stairs, never back down. The rain outside intensifies briefly. Water trickling along unseen channels in the ceiling and dripping into small pools on the floor. The dungeon smells fresher for a short time before the old air returns. You try to sleep but find yourself listening for footsteps again. Hours pass. The bell rings once more in the distance, a different tone, lower, perhaps evening prayer. The rhythm of the world continues to brush past you without stopping. Hunger presses sharper now. Your stomach tightens occasionally, then quiets, conserving strength. Thirst returns more slowly, but it returns. You begin counting breaths just to measure existence. Somewhere above, furniture scrapes across a floor. Voices echo faintly, laughter this time, brief and unaware. The castle holds warmth and light, while beneath it you sit in the same posture as before, unchanged. The other prisoner speaks again, voice softer than ever. Sometimes they take people for questions. You wait. Sometimes they take them to move them somewhere else. Another pause. And sometimes they come only to see if they should bother asking at all. You think about the man's words. Not yet, for what? The night deepens into complete stillness. Then, unexpectedly, keys rattle again far sooner than before. The same guard returns, but without the measured calm of routine. He carries no bucket this time, only the lantern. He unlocks your ankle chain first. The sudden freedom of movement feels almost painful as blood shifts into unused muscles. Before you can react, he gestures for you to stand. Your legs resist. You stagger but remain upright with effort. He does not help you. Prisoners who could not walk were dragged. Those who could were expected to. He produces another length of chain, shorter, attaching it between your wrists for walking. The meaning is unmistakable. You are leaving the chamber. The other prisoner does not move or speak. In the dim glow you sense them turning slightly away, as though watching would make the absence harder. The guard pulls gently forward. You take the first step toward the doorway, the first step away from the place you woke. As you cross the threshold, colder air greets you from the corridor beyond, carrying unfamiliar smells, wet wood, faint smoke, and the distant suggestion of open space somewhere far above. Behind you, the chamber returns to darkness. Ahead, the stairway rises, and you understand that whatever waited in uncertainty below, something far more certain waits above. The stairs are narrower than you expected. Your shoulder brushes the damp wall as you climb, guided only by the lantern swinging in the guard's hand. Each step feels uneven beneath bare feet, worn down by years of passage. The air changes first. It is still cold, but no longer buried. There is movement in it, a faint circulation carrying scents the dungeon never allowed: wood smoke, oil, old straw, and distant rain. You did not realize how still the lower chamber was until now. Halfway up, you pause without meaning to. Your legs tremble from disuse. The guard stops behind you, not impatient, simply waiting. The chain between your wrists shifts with your breathing. Above, a faint glow outlines the top of the staircase, real light, not the trembling circle of the lantern. Your eyes ache in anticipation. When you finally step onto the upper floor, you instinctively squint and turn away. Even this dim corridor feels blinding. A single torch burns in an iron bracket along the wall, its smoke curling toward a ceiling you can actually see. The space is narrow but tall enough to stand without bowing your head. Wooden beams cross overhead, and somewhere nearby water runs along a gutter outside. The sound of rain is clearer here. You hear the outside world again. The guard closes a door behind you, thicker than the dungeons, reinforced with bands of iron. The final separation settles into place with a heavy thud. The darkness below is now only memory. He leads you down the corridor. Other doors line the passage, each fitted with a small grated opening at eye level. Most remain silent, but as you pass one, a movement inside causes a faint scrape against metal. No voice follows. Whoever waits there has learned quiet survival. You keep walking. At the corridor's end, the guard pushes open another door. Warmth greets you immediately, carrying the smell of tallow candles and old parchment. The room beyond is not grand, only practical. A table stands at its center, 2 chairs, a narrow window covered by shutters to keep out the rain. This is not a hall of judgment. It is a room for conversation. The cloaked man from before stands beside the table, his gloves now removed. Ink stains mark his fingers. A quill rests nearby along with rolled papers held by small stones to keep them from curling. He studies you again as you enter, but this time he gestures toward the chair. The guard guides you into it and secures the wrist chain to a ring set in the wood. Not tight, simply certain. You sit. The man sits opposite you. For a long moment, neither of you speaks. He examines your face carefully, comparing details against something in memory or record. Rain taps softly against the shutters. Finally, he speaks. You do not remember your arrival. It is not a question. You shake your head slowly. He watches for hesitation, finds none. That is inconvenient, he murmurs, more to himself than to you. He unfolds a parchment. The scratching of the quill earlier suddenly makes sense. Records exist about you somewhere beyond your knowledge. You were found within the lower quarter 2 nights past, he says calmly. No possessions, no witnesses willing to claim familiarity. Yet certain parties insist you are known. You search your thoughts, but they remain empty. Whether lost by exhaustion or removed by shock, memory refuses to answer. He continues, in such matters, certainty must be established before further steps are taken. You realize then, this is not punishment, this is identification. The medieval world depended on recognition, name, family, allegiance. Without them, a person existed in a dangerous space between peasant and strangers near important places drew attention. He studies your reaction to each word, not accusing, measuring, until confirmation arrives. He says at last, you remain secured. He folds the parchment again. The interview is over before it truly began. He nods once to the guard, who unlocks the chain from the table, but not your wrists. You stand again, legs steadier now in the warmer air. As you turn toward the door, you notice something small on the table, a signet seal pressed into wax beside the parchment, a symbol you almost recognize, but the thought fades before you grasp it. The guard leads you back into the corridor. For a brief moment you wonder if you will return below. Instead, he stops at a different door and opens it. Inside is a smaller chamber, still stone, but dry, with straw scattered across the floor and a narrow bench along one wall. A single high window admits a dim wash of grey daylight. Not freedom, but not the deep dungeon either. He removes the wrist chain and leaves without a word. The door closes. You stand in the faint light, listening to the rain beyond the walls, realizing your place has changed not by choice, but by interest. Someone above now waits to decide who you are. The silence in this new room feels different. It is not the crushing silence of the dungeon, where sound disappeared into endless stone. Here, sound has edges. The rain outside taps against the narrow window, wind pushes faintly through unseen cracks, and somewhere far along the corridor a door closes and echoes briefly before fading. You sit on the bench. The wood is hard, but compared to the floor below it feels almost like comfort. Straw shifts beneath your feet, dry, brittle, smelling faintly of dust instead of rot. You did not realize how powerful the absence of dampness could be. Light enters slowly through the high slit in the wall. Not enough to see details clearly, but enough to separate the room from endless night. The grayness changes shade as clouds pass, and for the first time since waking, you can measure time by brightness instead of footsteps. You wait. Hunger returns, sharper now that your body senses normal rhythm again. Your throat dries, but not as quickly as below. Air moves here, it does not sit. After a long while, keys approach. The door opens and the same guard steps inside, carrying a wooden bowl and a small jug. He places them on the bench beside you, thicker bread than before, and a thin stew barely steaming. A spoon rests in the bowl. He does not watch you eat. This is no longer mere maintenance of survival. It is care enough to keep you coherent. You lift the spoon carefully. The stew tastes of onions and water with only a memory of meat, but warmth spreads through your chest immediately. Your hands tremble slightly as you eat too quickly, then slow yourself, fearing it may be taken away if finished too soon. The guard remains by the door, arms folded, eyes unfocused, waiting for nothing in particular. A keeper of routine rather than a judge. When you finish, he takes the bowl but leaves the jug. Water for later. Before leaving, he studies you briefly, as if confirming improvement, then closes the door again. Hours pass in pale daylight. You try to remember again. Streets, voices, faces, but each thought dissolves like breath in cold air. Only a faint sensation lingers. You are going somewhere, or perhaps running from somewhere. The direction escapes you. Footsteps in the corridor increase as the day progresses. People move above and around this level, servants perhaps, or minor officials. Their conversations blur through stone, fragments about supplies, weather, a cart delayed by mud. Life close enough to hear, but not to join. Near what must be afternoon, the door opens once more. The cloaked man enters alone this time, carrying a smaller parchment. He closes the door behind him and remains standing. "You seem improved," he says. You nod slightly. He studies your eyes carefully, searching not for guilt but for recognition. A messenger returned. He continues. Descriptions were sent to nearby towns. Your pulse quickens without reason. "No match yet," he says calmly. The words hold strange weight, relief and danger together. Without identity, you cannot be claimed, but neither can you be released. He sets the parchment on the bench beside you, but keeps a hand resting on it. There is, however, curiosity. He watches your reaction. You were found near a restricted gate at nightfall. Not wandering, waiting. You try to picture it, a gate, darkness, rain perhaps, but the memory slips again just before forming. He notices. Either you truly do not recall, or you are skilled at not recalling. Not accusation, observation. He lifts the parchment again and rolls it closed. For now, you remain here, until certainty arrives. He turns toward the door, then pauses. If memory returns, inform the guard. It may shorten your stay. The door closes behind him. Evening approaches. The grey light fades to blue, then to shadow. The corridor quiets as activity above settles into night routines. You lie on the straw. Sleep comes differently here, deeper, but uneasy. Without total darkness, your mind drifts through half-dreams, footsteps approaching a gate, a symbol pressed into wax, a voice calling a name you cannot quite hear. You wake suddenly. For a moment you believe you remember, but the thought vanishes before words form, leaving only the steady sound of rain beyond the wall, and the growing sense that whatever you forgot is the very reason you cannot yet leave. Morning does not arrive all at once. It seeps into the room slowly, the grey light turning pale, then almost white as clouds thin somewhere beyond the narrow slit in the wall. You wake before the guard comes, your body beginning to follow a rhythm again, a fragile imitation of ordinary life. For a few moments after waking, you almost forget where you are. The bench beneath you feels like a traveler's rest, the straw like rough bedding in a roadside shelter. But then the locked door reminds you. Memory does not return, only awareness. Footsteps approach sooner than yesterday. The guard enters carrying water and bread again, but today there is also a small cloth folded beneath his arm. He places the food down as usual, then hands you the cloth without explanation. You unfold it. Inside is a simple linen shirt, worn but clean. You look up at him. He shrugs slightly, as if the decision was not his. Someone else has taken interest in your condition. After he leaves, you change slowly. The fresh fabric against your skin feels almost unfamiliar after damp stone and stale air. Even such a small kindness unsettles you more than the chains ever did. Hours pass. The corridor grows active again. Voices clearer today, not just servants, but sharper tones of authority. Doors open and close more frequently. Something in the castle above has changed pace. Near midday, 2 sets of steps stop outside your door. The guard unlocks it, and the cloaked man enters once more, though without his cloak today. His clothing is plain but finely made, marked with careful stitching rather than decoration. A man belonging to administration rather than court. Behind him stands another figure you have never seen, older, slower, eyes attentive in a different way, not measuring identity, but searching memory. He carries a small wooden case. They do not sit this time. The older man opens the case and removes several objects, placing them carefully on the bench beside you. A coin, a leather cord with a small iron charm, and a broken button carved from bone. You stare at them. Nothing happens. The room remains still except for faint wind outside the window. The older man watches your eyes rather than your hands. Take your time, he says gently. You pick up the coin first. Cold metal, worn edges. You turn it over. A crest faintly visible, but unfamiliar. No sudden recognition comes. You set it down. Next, the charm. Roughly shaped, something a traveler or laborer might carry. You hold it longer, waiting for feeling to surface. Only emptiness. Finally, the button. You study its carved pattern closely, certain that if anything should awaken memory, it would be this small personal object. Nothing. You lower your hand. The cloaked man exhales softly, not frustrated, simply confirming another possibility fading. The older man nods. Then it is genuine. The first man folds his arms, or deeply buried. They exchange a glance not meant for you, a silent conversation about risk and patience. What happens now? You ask quietly, voice rough from disuse. They both look at you, and for the first time you sense honesty rather than caution. Now, the cloiled man replies, "We wait for someone to come looking." The answer feels heavier than chains, because if no one comes, your identity remains unfinished, and unfinished things in this world rarely remain free. They collect the objects again and leave without further explanation. The door locks. You sit back on the bench, staring at the place where the items lay moments before. You feel certain you should recognize them, yet they carry no weight inside your mind. Evening returns gradually. But tonight, something new happens. From somewhere beyond the corridor, a horse arrives. You hear hooves against stone in the courtyard above, hurried voices, a gate opening. The sounds echo faintly down the passage. A messenger. Footsteps approach quickly, different from the guard's steady pace. They pass your door and continue deeper into the building. Minutes later, distant voices rise, sharper, urgent. You cannot hear the words, only tone. And tone tells you something important has finally reached this place. You sit motionless in the fading light, listening to the castle shift around you, sensing that the waiting you were promised may soon end, though not necessarily in the way you hope. Night settles slowly, but the castle does not. Long after darkness fills your small chamber, footsteps continue in the corridors beyond. Doors open, voices murmur, then silence returns only to break again moments later. The rhythm is unfamiliar, not the ordinary movement of servants or guards, but the uneven motion of news traveling from room to room. You sit awake on the bench, listening. Time stretches, measured only by the fading of torchlight beneath the crack of your door. Shadows shift as people pass. Once, hurried steps stop directly outside, then move on again without the key turning. Whatever arrived tonight was not meant for you. Eventually, the sounds thin. The castle exhales into quiet, but it is a different quiet than before. Tense, aware. You lie down but do not sleep. Sometime deep in the night, rain stops. The air changes again, cooler and clearer through the slit in the wall. Without the steady tapping, the silence feels wider. You begin hearing distant night sounds from the town beyond. A dog barking far away. Faint wheels over wet ground. A single late voice calling across the street. For the first time since waking in the dungeon, you sense the outside world, not as memory, but as something still continuing without you. Morning arrives pale and cold. The guard comes earlier than usual. He brings water but no food at first. Instead, he studies you briefly, as though confirming you have not changed overnight. "Stay ready," he says. The first full sentence he has spoken to you. He leaves before you can respond. Minutes later, the door opens again. The cloaked man enters, cloak fastened this time despite the dry morning. His expression is focused, almost resolved. Behind him stands another guard you have not seen before. "You will come with us," he says calmly. No explanation follows. They do not chain your wrists this time, only gesture for you to walk ahead. The absence of restraints feels heavier than iron. You step into the corridor, aware that the direction is not toward the stairs that led down, but toward another part of the structure. You pass the room where you were first questioned. The table inside sits empty now, parchment gone. Instead, you continue farther, through a narrow arch and into a wider hallway lined with small windows. Daylight floods here, making you pause instinctively. Your eyes struggle but adjust. Beyond the glassless openings you glimpse rooftops wet from last night's rain, thin smoke rising into pale sky. The world looks unchanged. You wonder how many days have passed since you last saw it. The group stops at a heavy wooden door reinforced with iron straps. A guard opens it from within, revealing a chamber larger than any you have yet entered. Not grand, but official. Shelves line one wall, filled with rolled records. A long table occupies the center, and beside it stands a traveler. Mud stains his cloak hem, his boots are worn from distance. He looks at you immediately, not with curiosity, but recognition mixed with uncertainty. The cloaked official watches both of you carefully. "This man claims knowledge of you," he says simply. The traveler steps closer, studying your face as if searching for confirmation of his own memory. For a moment, neither of you speaks. Then he frowns, slightly. "You were at the South Road," he says slowly. "Near the old gate before the storm." A flicker crosses your thoughts, not a clear image. Only movement, wind, a sense of waiting somewhere cold. It vanishes before forming fully. You shake your head, faintly. "I don't remember." He looks troubled, glancing toward the official. "I carried a message," he explains. He stood there like he expected someone else. "When I passed again after the rain began, he was gone." The official folds his hands. "No name?" he asks. The traveler hesitates. No name given, but he was not wandering. He was watching the road. The room falls silent. You feel the weight of their attention. This is no longer about whether you exist. It is about why you are there at all. The official nods slowly. Then the matter deepens. He dismisses the traveler with thanks. The man leaves reluctantly, still glancing back at you before the door closes behind him. You remain standing. The official studies you once more, longer than before. "Memory may return," he says quietly. "Until then, you will remain under watch. Not punishment, not freedom. Something between. A place held open for a truth that has not yet decided to reveal itself." You are not returned to the lower chamber. Instead, they lead you farther along the corridor, past windows where daylight rests quietly on stone floors. The guard opens a narrow wooden door at the end of the passage. Inside is a room scarcely larger than the last, but different again. A cot rests against the wall, rough wool blanket folded across it. A small table stands beneath the window slit, and beside it a clay pitcher already filled with water. A room meant for staying, not comfort, but duration. "You remain here," the official says. "You may walk within the corridor during daylight under watch. nowhere else. It is the first time movement has been offered instead of taken. You nod. He studies you a moment longer, as though expecting a question, but none forms. He leaves, and the guard closes the door without locking it fully, only enough that it must be opened from outside. You sit on the cot. The mattress is thin straw, but after stone it feels impossibly soft. You rest your hands on your knees and listen. Somewhere nearby a servant carries dishes, the faint clatter drifting through walls. Voices speak normally here, not whispers, not echoes from deep underground. You lie back. The ceiling is wooden, crossed by dark beams. For a long time you simply watch them. The mind, given space, begins searching again. A road. The traveler's words linger. You close your eyes and follow the feeling. Wind across open ground, clouds heavy before rain, waiting near a gate whose shape you almost grasp. A figure approaches, but the image dissolves again before showing a face. A knock interrupts the attempt. The guard opens the door slightly. Walk. You step into the corridor. He remains a few paces behind as you move slowly along the passage. Your legs are steadier now, though still unfamiliar with distance. You pass 2 windows overlooking the inner courtyard. A cart stands below, its wheels muddy. Stable hands move calmly about their work. Normal life. No one looks up toward you. After a short circuit of the hall, you return to the room. The guard nods once and leaves you again. The door rests nearly closed. Afternoon passes with pale sunlight shifting across the floor. You drink water and sit, then stand, then sit again, learning stillness without chains. As evening approaches, the official returns alone. He carries a folded piece of parchment but does not open it. More inquiries were made. He says, "No family seeks you. No accusation has arrived. Yet you were not placed at that gate by chance." You listen. In uncertain matters, he continues, we wait either for claim or for memory. He places the parchment on the table but keeps his hand over it. If memory returns, speak it plainly. It will serve you better than silence. You nod again. He hesitates briefly before leaving, as if considering another question he decides not to ask. Night comes gently. You lie on the cot and watch the faint outline of the window grow darker. For the first time, sleep arrives without the shock of sudden waking. Dreams follow unclear shapes, footsteps on wet ground, a lantern swinging in wind. You see yourself standing beside a wooden gate. Someone is late. You remember impatience, and then you wake. The room is silent, moonlight barely tracing the wall. The dream retreats before you can hold it, leaving only a certainty. You were waiting for someone important. Outside, a distant bell rings once into the night air, and you realize the answer is close now, not somewhere beyond the walls, but already inside your mind, waiting for the moment it chooses to return. Morning arrives clear. For the first time since you woke in darkness, sunlight reaches through the slit in the wall without clouds to soften it. A narrow bar of gold stretches across the floor and rests against the opposite stone. Dust drifts slowly within it, moving in calm patterns untouched by urgency. You sit upright, already awake. The dream lingers, not as an image, but as a feeling of unfinished purpose. You were waiting, not lost, not wandering, waiting with intention. Footsteps approach soon after. The guard opens the door and studies you briefly, as though expecting change. Perhaps something in your expression answers him because he does not speak, before motioning you into the corridor. You walk without hesitation. The castle feels quieter this morning. Fewer voices, fewer passing servants. The air carries the stillness of decision already made somewhere above. He leads you back to the same record chamber. Inside, the official stands beside the long table. The parchment from yesterday lies open now, weighed at its corners. He watches you carefully as you enter, searching for the difference he suspects. "You remember," he says, not a question. You hesitate only a moment. "Someone was supposed to meet me," you reply slowly. The words feel fragile, as if speaking them risks losing them again. At the south gate, before the storm, he gestures slightly for you to continue. I don't know his face, but I knew the sign. Your eyes drift to the table unconsciously. Wax a seal. The official's expression shifts, not surprise, but confirmation. He turns the parchment toward you. Beside its writing rests a small mark pressed into dried wax, the same symbol you noticed days ago without understanding. You feel the recognition now, not full memory, but connection. A task given, a meeting arranged, something meant to pass from one hand to another quietly. "You were a courier," he says gently. The word settles into place with strange certainty. Not a grand role, not noble, but purposeful. A traveler trusted to carry messages when names were less important than arrival. I was waiting because I was early, you murmur, the thought forming as you speak it. The storm came, and then the rest does not return, only darkness and waking below the castle. He nods, slowly. The man you were to meet never arrived, but your presence near a restricted gate required certainty before release. He folds the parchment carefully. No accusation stands against you. The words hang in the air, almost unreal after so much waiting. The guard removes the final restraint, still loosely around your wrist, a precaution more than a chain. The weight you did not notice before disappears completely. You may leave, the official says. No ceremony follows, no escort of honor, simply an open door leading to a corridor brighter than any you have yet walked. You step forward, through halls, past windows, down a stair you never climbed before. The air grows warmer, fresher, carrying sounds of the waking town, carts rolling, distant conversation, birds crossing open sky. At last the outer door opens. Daylight surrounds you fully. The courtyard stones gleam faintly from yesterday's rain. Beyond the gate lies the road, stretching away between buildings you do not remember yet somehow recognize in shape and motion. You pause just outside the threshold. Behind you, the castle returns to its ordinary life. Guards resume posts. Doors close. The place that held your uncertainty no longer needs you within it. You breathe deeply. Memory may return in time. Names, faces, the message that never arrived, or it may remain scattered like dust in sunlight. But one truth is clear now. You were never condemned, only unknown. And in a world built on knowing who belongs where, uncertainty was the only prison you truly inhabited. You step onto the road. The gate closes softly behind you, not as a barrier, but as an ending, leaving you once more among the living, carrying nothing but the quiet knowledge of how close a person can come to disappearing, simply by not being recognized. The road stretches ahead, wet and glimmering in the early morning light. You take a step, then another, feeling the weight of every moment spent below the castle stones. It is strange to move freely again. The air fills your lungs in ways you had almost forgotten, sharp with rain, sweet with the faint smell of smoke and wet earth. For a long while, you do not notice anyone else. The town awakens slowly, merchants opening shutters, horses clattering over cobblestones, voices rising and falling in everyday rhythm. Each sound is alive, unlike the muffled, hollow echoes of the dungeon. You pass under an arch where shadows linger. Memories from the deep darkness rise, ghost-like, but not sharply. Just shapes, movements, fragments of fear and waiting. A chill touches your neck, reminding you that the world is always more than daylight and open roads. The thought occurs. The castle has not let you go entirely. The officials, the guard, the parchment, all were part of the design to test you, to see if memory would return, to see if you could remain coherent under uncertainty, to see if patience could survive confinement. Somewhere ahead, a dog barks, startled by a passing cart. Your senses are attuned to movement now in a way they weren't below. Every shadow could hide a figure. Every echo could be a voice calling your name. You reach the first crossroads. Cobblestones, slick from rain, glint faintly. You hesitate, unsure which path leads farther from this place, or closer to the one who sent the message that never arrived. The morning sun burns weakly behind clouds, casting faint light across worn signs and faded symbols of traders and townsfolk. The memory that finally surfaces is not of names or faces, it is of waiting, standing at a gate, expectation, the storm, the subtle tension of readiness, the knowledge that someone important might appear. The purpose had been clear once, though now fragmented, blurred like a painting left too long in the rain. You take a deep breath. Each footstep against stone feels heavy with the weight of days spent underground, yet freeing too, a strange contradiction. Hunger presses lightly, thirst still lingers, but the cold from below has faded enough that your body begins to remember warmth. And then, without warning, movement in the street catches your eye, a figure approaching, slow, cautious, eyes trained downward as if scanning for someone unknown yet expected. The same pulse from your dreams, the same timing from your memory of the gate. Your heart quickens, you pause instinctively. Recognition does not arrive fully, it is only a sense, a flicker, yet it carries promise. The figure stops briefly, glances at you, and moves on without acknowledgement, perhaps a passerby, Perhaps the messenger who never arrived, or perhaps the world itself reminding you that you exist again in daylight. You continue walking. Each step carries both uncertainty and the faintest relief. The road is not free of questions. Who sent the message? Why were you at that gate? Will memory return fully, or will fragments continue to haunt you like faint echoes of stone? But movement, however cautious, feels like a reclamation. Every sound, every distant bell, every passing voice reinforces one truth you have carried since the first step above the dungeon. The world continues, and you are still part of it. The town stretches ahead, ordinary and alive. You do not yet belong entirely, but belonging is no longer forced. It is something to be reclaimed slowly, step by step. The gate looms faintly at the end of the street, still wet from rain. You approach it with no certainty, only intent. And for the first time since waking in darkness, the thought that perhaps someone, somewhere, will finally recognize you fully does not feel impossible. You take another step, and the day moves forward, as it always does, indifferent to fear, chains, or waiting. The road narrows as you leave the central square behind. Rain has left puddles in the uneven cobblestones, and the chill of the morning lingers in the mist that curls along the rooftops. Every sound feels amplified after the silence of the dungeon. The creak of a cartwheel, the distant barking of a dog, the soft murmur of voices from a tavern doorway. Your steps fall carefully, not from fear, but from awareness. Days in confinement sharpen instincts in ways that daylight never could. You notice cracks in the walls, the way water collects in depressions, the faint smell of moss near the edges of the road. A child passes, bare feet squelching in puddles, and looks at you briefly before running ahead. Something in the innocence and carelessness of movement reminds you of what you have been denied. Freedom without constant calculation, trust without chains. You walk past, realizing the sensation is almost foreign. The memory of waiting at the gate creeps back again. You remember the storm, the anticipation, the knowledge that someone would arrive. Though the details are blurred, the feeling itself is sharp. Urgency, expectancy, readiness. You pause and close your eyes briefly, letting it settle, letting it guide your next steps. Ahead, the road splits again. One path leads toward a cluster of houses, smoke rising gently from chimneys. The other curves upward toward the open countryside, fields just visible through the early morning mist. You hesitate, feeling the weight of choice, not chains, not walls, but decision. From the mist, movement emerges, a figure on horseback, cloaked, familiar yet distant. Recognition flickers, uncertain but persistent. You stop, unsure whether to call out or wait. The rider slows, glances toward you, then disappears behind the mist before reaching the road. A memory surfaces, fragmented, the seal pressed in wax. The gate, waiting for someone who never arrived. Your pulse quickens as if your body remembers more than your mind. The dungeon, the corridors, the officials, all of it becomes a prologue to this moment outside, under the open sky. You continue walking, letting the memory guide your steps. Each stride feels lighter than the last. Hunger and thirst remind you that survival is still necessary, yet the weight of days spent below has lessened. Sunlight breaks through a gap in the clouds, warming your shoulders for the first time in weeks. In the distance, a bell tolls, faint, carried on the wind, yet unmistakable. Not a dungeon bell, not a warning, a town bell, marking hours in a world that has not stopped for you. The sound spreads warmth through your chest, a quiet reminder that life continues, indifferent, yet patient, waiting for those who have been absent to return. You walk onward, guided less by sight and more by instinct, by fragments of memory you cannot yet place. The road stretches ahead, misty but alive, filled with possibilities, each step reclaiming a world you were almost removed from. And though the past clings like shadow, you are no longer beneath it. You are moving forward. The countryside unfolds slowly as you leave the edge of the town behind. Narrow roads bordered by wet grass guide you through fields still glimmering with rain. The air carries the scent of soil and wildflowers, strange after the stale stone and damp of the dungeon. Each breath feels like reclaiming a piece of life you had forgotten. Your footsteps disturb puddles in shallow ruts, the sound echoing faintly across open land. Here, there are no walls to contain movement, no shadows hiding unseen observers, yet the instincts honed below remain awareness of each sound, each shift in wind, each figure appearing from distance. You move cautiously, almost automatically. Memory surfaces in fragments. The gate, the seal pressed into wax, The waiting, not faces or names, only the urgency of a task left unfinished. You feel it in your chest, a tension that drives each step, a silent compulsion to continue forward. From a distance, a figure appears on the road. Not the messenger from before, but someone walking slowly, carrying a bundle. You stop, unsure whether to approach or let them pass. The figure glances up, recognition, perhaps then continues, unaware of your presence. A fleeting reminder that the world continues with or without your attention. You press forward. Each step seems to reconnect you to a rhythm lost below, a rhythm of open air, of movement, of purpose. Hunger and thirst remain, but they are background notes rather than commands. You are rediscovering a life that existed before chains and stone. The road begins to rise, winding gently toward a hilltop. From here, the town and the castle you left appear faintly behind, small and distant. You take a moment to look back, feeling a mixture of relief and lingering tension. The place that held you is still there, but it no longer confines you. Wind brushes across your face, carrying faint smells of smoke and earth, and you close your eyes briefly, letting the sensations anchor you. Memory may yet return fully, but even in fragments, you understand purpose. The dungeon, the officials, the unseen observers, all were part of a journey to reach this point of movement, this reclamation of agency. Ahead, the road dips into a small wooded area. Trees rise, branches slick with rain, leaves whispering softly. Shadows play across the path, but not with menace. You move with attention, stepping carefully over roots and wet leaves. The natural world feels alive, patient, indifferent to the struggles of man, yet offering its guidance through simple presence. A distant sound breaks the silence, a bird calling, a crow perhaps, announcing its own territory. You stop to listen, letting the sound fill the empty spaces your memory has left behind. In this vast openness, absence and presence coexist, and you sense a fragile balance between knowing and unknowing. Continuing, you notice a faint track diverging from the main road, narrower, less worn. Instinct pulls you toward it. Perhaps curiosity, perhaps the shadow of memory urging movement toward a destination only you can feel. You step onto it, and the world narrows, focusing on each sense. Sight, sound, smell, and touch, each heightened after weeks of confinement. By mid-afternoon, the track opens onto a small clearing. Sunlight falls in patches through the trees, illuminating damp moss and wildflowers. Here, the world feels alive, complete, yet untouched. You pause, taking it in, aware of each heartbeat, each breath. The memory of waiting at the gate surfaces again, urgency, expectation, responsibility, and for the first time, it feels paired with clarity. The path ahead is uncertain, but your steps are deliberate. You carry the lessons of confinement, patience, awareness, endurance, yet now, they guide you in freedom, not survival. And with each step, the journey becomes less about escaping the past and more about embracing the possibilities that stretch ahead. The clearing stretches before you, small but vivid. Patches of sunlight filter through wet leaves, forming patterns on the soft moss-covered ground. Each step forward releases the faint scent of earth, rain, and growth, smells you did not know your body had missed until now. Birdsong drifts from the canopy above, irregular and lively, carrying the rhythm of a world that moved without pause while you were confined. The sound is almost startling at first, a contrast to the hollow echo of stone corridors. You stop, letting the calls and whispers of wind wash over you, as if learning again how life sounds outside prison walls. You notice a faint path leading deeper into the trees. It is narrow, bordered by ferns and small flowering plants, suggesting infrequent use. Yet instinct, sharpened in the dungeon, tells you it is not random. Someone or something intended it to be found. As you walk along the path, your mind drifts to fragments of memory. The gate, the wax seal, the storm sensations and urgency that persist even without clarity. You try to reconstruct what was expected of you, yet the details resist. Only the emotional imprint remains. Purpose, attention, vigilance. The forest deepens, shadows stretching as the sun climbs higher. Occasional beams of light pierce through branches, illuminating patches of the wet earth. Each step requires care. Roots twist underfoot, puddles obscure stones, and moss conceals uneven ground. You navigate instinctively, each movement deliberate, like someone who has learned to survive under pressure. Midway through the path, a sound halts you, a rustle in the underbrush, subtle but distinct. You freeze, heart quickening. The instinct to flee is there, but so is the measured patience learned from confinement. You wait. A small animal emerges, a hare, its fur slick from rain. It pauses, assessing you, then bounds away, leaving a faint trail in the mud. The relief is almost tangible. Even this brief encounter reinforces your awareness. Life continues, unpredictable yet persistent, indifferent to fear. Further along, the path widens slightly. You glimpse a low stone wall, partially overgrown, perhaps a boundary of an old estate or farmland. The wall is broken in places, revealing glimpses of fields beyond. Sunlight glints off wet grass, and in the distance, a faint figure moves across the open land. Perhaps a farmer, or perhaps someone connected to the message you once carried. The memory of waiting returns sharper now. A figure at the gate, storm approaching, anticipation pressing into your chest. You stop, closing your eyes briefly, letting the feeling anchor you. Though the face remains elusive, the purpose is undeniable. You were not wandering, you were waiting, and the world expected something from you. Pushing forward, you approach the stone wall. The path beyond it is less distinct, but instinct guides you. Each step is careful, deliberate. The forest begins to thin, and you sense the approach of open land, where visibility increases, and with it, possibility. Finally, you reach the crest of a small rise. From here, the land spreads wide, open fields glistening with rain, small roads winding through pastures, and a distant village just visible under the sun. The world feels vast, yet navigable. Freedom stretches ahead in every direction, carrying both uncertainty and potential. You pause, letting the space and light settle in. The memory of confinement, of stone and chains, is still present, but it no longer controls you. The road forward is yours. Each choice, each step, carries the weight of experience, but also the promise of agency. A distant bell rings from the village. Its sound drifts through the open land, carrying with it a sense of rhythm, of continuity, of a life moving forward. You breathe deeply. Every nerve, every sense, feels alive. You are outside, moving again, not as a prisoner, but as someone returning to the world. The path from the forest begins to curve toward the village. With each step, you carry the memory of what was endured, of what was survived, but also the sense that the next chapter is yours to define. The world beyond the trees is vast, alive, and waiting. And so you continue, step by step, toward light, toward freedom, and toward the unfolding story of life outside the dungeon walls. The village comes into view slowly, each step revealing more of its modest charm. Roofs glisten with lingering rain, chimneys send up thin curls of smoke, and the narrow streets curve irregularly, worn by countless feet over years. You pause at the edge, taking it in. The world here moves on its own rhythm, unaware of your absence, yet inviting you to rejoin it. Footsteps echo on cobblestones as you step forward. A child runs past, squealing with a small wooden hoop, followed by a call from a woman leaning from her doorway. The sound is ordinary, mundane, yet it strikes something deep within you. The pulse of life. Your senses drink in everything: the smell of baking bread from a nearby oven, the wet clay of walls, the faint tank of smoke from hearths. Even the chill from the early morning is balanced by warmth from sunlight striking wet stone. You realize the contrast to the dungeon could not be greater here. Every sensation is amplified, every detail alive. As you move along the main street, villagers glance briefly, noting your presence but not questioning it. You realize how long it has been since anyone observed you without suspicion, restraint, or purpose. The freedom is subtle but profound. Memory tugs at you again: the gate, the seal, the storm, the messenger who never arrived. Though fragmented, it pushes you forward. You understand, perhaps instinctively, that whatever task awaited you then is not entirely forgotten. Purpose lingers like a shadow, urging movement, anchoring your steps in intent. The path narrows past a cluster of small shops, and you notice the signs: a baker, a cobbler, a smith. You pass the smith, watching sparks flicker from metal as the hammer strikes. The sound reverberates faintly across the street, a rhythm alive with effort and creation, not confinement. You step on, feeling the hum of life under your feet. At the center of the village stands a small square. A fountain trickles water into a stone basin, birds hopping along the edge. Here, people gather briefly, exchanging news, greetings, and goods. You pause, letting the scene wash over you, sensing both your place within it and your distance. You are free, yet cautious. Independence is unfamiliar, but not unwelcome. Movement catches your eye: a figure appears from one of the narrow alleys, cloaked, deliberate, walking as if expecting something. The heart in your chest tightens. Recognition flickers. Could this be the person who was meant to meet you at the gate? Perhaps someone tied to the message you carried, or to the purpose you now remember only in fragments. You hesitate, torn between following instinct and remaining unnoticed. The figure pauses, glancing briefly in your direction, then continues along the square, unaware of your attention. You step forward cautiously, following at a distance, feeling the weight of every past day beneath your renewed freedom. The village hums around you, life simple, continuous, indifferent, yet alive. Each sound, each movement, reinforces your return to the world. The rain, the cobblestones, the chatter, the smoke. You are no longer a prisoner, no longer a shadow beneath stone, yet your journey has not ended. You take another step, letting instinct guide you. Memory and purpose intertwine in subtle ways now. Each decision carries meaning. Each step forward is both cautious and deliberate. The path ahead is uncertain, but it is yours to navigate. And as the sun climbs higher, warming the wet rooftops and illuminating the stone streets, you understand, the journey that began in darkness is not over. It has only transformed, from survival beneath chains to life reclaimed in the open world. The square begins to empty as midday approaches. Villagers return to their work. The baker kneads dough, the smith hammers iron, children chase each other along narrow lanes. You move carefully, observing, taking in the patterns of life that have persisted while you were confined beneath stone. Every sound, every movement, reinforces your own rhythm now, tentative, yet grounded. You follow the figure from the alley at a distance, careful not to draw attention. Cloaked and purposeful, they lead toward the outskirts of the village. The narrow path slopes upward, leaving behind clustered homes and moving into open fields. The air grows fresher, scented with grass, wet soil, and distant flowers. Sunlight falls in uneven patches, casting long shadows from trees and fences alike. Memory tugs faintly. The gate, the seal, the storm, the waiting. You feel it now, not as confusion, but as a tether, a link to what was expected of you. The purpose of your prior presence begins to clarify in fragments, like faint sketches emerging from darkness. The figure stops beside a low stone wall, glancing around cautiously. You remain hidden, observing. Beyond the wall, the countryside stretches wide, rolling hills, scattered trees, and in the far distance, a cluster of buildings, perhaps a manor, perhaps another village. Your pulse quickens. Instinct tells you that the final stage of your journey is near. You move closer. Each step is measured, deliberate, informed by weeks of careful awareness. Past instincts sharpen your senses. A branch snapping, wind shifting, distant voices, all guide you. All command caution. The world is alive in ways the dungeon could never allow. Finally, the figure reaches the edge of a small clearing. They kneel briefly, pressing something into the earth. Your curiosity spikes. Could this be the message, the seal, the purpose you carried without knowing? You approach carefully, but the figure stands abruptly, catching sight of you. Recognition flickers. Not surprise, not fear, merely acknowledgement. A brief nod passes between you, unspoken and loaded with meaning. For the first time, the fragments of your memory align partially with reality. The waiting, the storm, the urgency, all make sense now as preparation, as instruction, as part of a plan beyond your immediate comprehension. The figure steps back, giving you space. You understand the gesture. Follow, but cautiously. Each step forward feels weighty yet deliberate. Memory remains incomplete, but purpose begins to guide your movement with clarity absent in the dungeon's shadow. You move through the clearing, the low wall at your side, fields stretching outward. Birds take flight overhead, startled by your motion, and you realize with strange relief that the world is indifferent to your story, yet it is your story to navigate. The path ahead opens onto a sunlit track, leading toward a cluster of buildings. The sense of anticipation grows. The next encounter will clarify what the dungeon could not, what waiting alone could not reveal. Yet you step forward without hesitation, carrying the lessons of darkness, the awareness sharpened by confinement, and the resilience earned from every day spent below. The world is open, yet precise, free, yet demanding attention. Your journey continues, step by step, toward understanding, recognition, and the purpose that has been waiting silently while you reclaimed the light. The cluster of buildings grows larger as you approach, revealing a courtyard that appears both functional and lived in. Wooden carts lean against walls, Barrels of water glint faintly in sunlight, and laundry flutters on a line stretched between two structures. The hum of daily life fills the air, the sound of voices, the creak of hinges, and the low clatter of tools striking stone or wood. You pause at the edge of the courtyard, scanning for the cloaked figure. They have stopped near a small gate that leads further inward, motioning subtly for you to follow. You hesitate only briefly. Instinct guides your steps, learned through confinement and sharpened in weeks of careful observation. Memory flickers. Again, the gate, the seal, the storm, the urgency of waiting. You remember not the face of the one who was supposed to meet you, but the weight of responsibility you carried. A task, a message, a trust. The fragments of recollection fuel your cautious progress. As you move closer, someone emerges from one of the buildings, an older man, perhaps a steward or a keeper of the estate. His eyes settle on you immediately. Recognition is there, subtle, careful, as if he understands your importance without fully knowing your identity. You sense authority and patience in equal measure. "You have arrived," he says simply, voice calm but firm. The message you carried was never completed, yet your presence has not gone unnoticed. You feel the weight of his words, the seal, the instructions, the stormy night by the gate, all pieces of a puzzle that is finally beginning to reveal its outline. You nod slowly, unsure how much he expects, but certain that your steps until now have been guided by the very purpose he mentions. The cloaked figure gestures for you to follow them further into the courtyard. You do, every movement deliberate, every sense alert. Birds take flight from the rooftops as you pass, and the air seems to vibrate with anticipation. They lead you to a small stone building, its door reinforced but not imposing. Inside, light falls through narrow windows, illuminating a simple table and chair. On the table rests a wooden box, sealed with the same emblem you saw pressed into wax days ago. The older man opens the box carefully, revealing folded documents and a small, intricately carved object, the same kind of charm you once held in your cell. The pieces of your memory begin to align. You were a messenger, a courier, entrusted with delivering knowledge, carrying fragments of instruction that mattered more than your presence alone. You were meant to wait, the steward explains. The storm, the delay, it was never your fault. The path was meant to test patience, resolve, and awareness. You have proven each. For the first time since waking in darkness, you feel understanding. Not full clarity, not every detail, but enough to sense the breadth of what has occurred. Every step underground, every moment of uncertainty, every day of waiting was preparation. The steward sets the box before you. "The next stage is yours to complete," he says. "Use your memory, your judgment, and your awareness. The world beyond awaits, but so too does the purpose entrusted to you." You reach out and touch the box. The wood is cool, solid, real. You feel the weight of responsibility, not as a burden, but as an extension of the person who has survived confinement, uncertainty, and absence. Stepping back, you glance toward the open courtyard, the fields beyond, the distant village. Everything seems familiar yet alive, a world untouched by chains, yet waiting for your decision. You realize the journey is no longer about survival. It is about completion, action, and finally stepping fully into the space between memory and purpose. With a deep breath, you lift the documents and the charm, feeling the culmination of every trial that brought you here. Each step forward carries intention, clarity, and the quiet certainty that the days in darkness were not lost. They were preparation for this moment. The door opens onto the courtyard, sunlight spilling across your path. You step through, carrying both the fragments of memory and the weight of responsibility, ready to follow the journey to its end. The sunlight on the courtyard feels stronger now, warmer, as though the world itself is acknowledging your return. Every stone, every beam, every ripple in the puddles left by yesterday's rain is a reminder. You are outside the dungeon, yet your journey is far from complete. The wooden box in your hands carries weight beyond the physical responsibility, history, and fragments of a purpose you only now begin to grasp fully. The older man, the steward, stands silently nearby, watching. His gaze is steady, patient, as if measuring how you will step into this next stage. You sense he knows the importance of your choice, not merely to move, but to act with precision, awareness, and care. The cloaked figure gestures toward a narrow path leading away from the courtyard, into open fields that rise and fall gently toward distant hills. Your first instinct is to hesitate, uncertainty fluttering in the chest like a bird. But the memory of waiting at the gate, the seal pressed into wax, the stormy night. It pulses faintly within you, urging action. This is not coincidence. This is the continuation of your task. You follow the path, each step deliberate. Grass brushes against your legs, wet but soft. The wind carries scents of earth, rain, and distant pine. For the first time since your imprisonment, your senses feel fully awake, alive to the world, rather than constrained by fear. Ahead, the path curves, revealing a lone figure standing on a rise. It is impossible to be certain, yet instinct recognizes familiarity, the same presence you once awaited at the gate. The figure does not move as you approach. They only wait. Their posture is still, patient, as if they have known your arrival would come, but only when you are ready. Your chest tightens. A mixture of anticipation, relief, and understanding presses upon you. All the days in darkness, the waiting, the uncertainty, the fragments of memory, they converge in this moment. You were not lost. You were prepared. You were tested. The figure finally speaks, voice low but firm. You have arrived, they say. The message, the task, the trust. It was never about the journey you saw, but about the one you carried within. You have passed it without knowing, and now it is complete. The words strike deeper than chains ever could. You realize the dungeon, the officials, the guards, the corridors, were not merely obstacles, but instruments. Every day, underground was a rehearsal, every trial a preparation for this encounter. You step closer. The wind lifts your hair, carrying a faint scent of rain and earth. The sun highlights the folds of the figure's cloak, the soft curve of the land beyond, and for the first time, you feel the full weight of choice, to act, to claim your purpose, to move forward deliberately into the world that has waited while you were absent. The box in your hands feels lighter now, its weight transformed by understanding. You open it carefully, revealing the documents and charm. Every fragment, every instruction, every symbol, they align with the scattered memories that have guided you. Clarity does not strike all at once, but in quiet pulses, like sunlight through moving leaves. You take a deep breath. You are no longer waiting. You are no longer uncertain. The past is no longer a prison. You are alive, aware, and ready to step into the next chapter. The figure nods once, approvingly, then steps aside, revealing the path ahead, open, bright, alive. You move forward, each step intentional, deliberate, carrying the lessons of confinement, the fragments of memory, and the weight of responsibility now transformed into action. The dungeon is behind you. The open world awaits. And finally, for the first time, you walk fully in the light, no longer shadowed by stone, chains, or forgotten purpose. The path from the clearing stretches wide, sunlight spilling across fields glistening from the recent rain. Each step forward feels deliberate, yet effortless, as if the weight of weeks spent in darkness has transformed into momentum, guiding you naturally toward what lies ahead. The wind carries faint scents of grass, earth, and distant wood smoke, reminding you that life has been moving all along, indifferent to the days you were hidden away. Ahead, the village you passed earlier comes into view. From this distance it appears smaller, yet more tangible, alive with activity. You notice people moving with purpose, a blacksmith hammering metal, children chasing each other along narrow streets, merchants arranging wares. The world is steady, constant, and indifferent, yet welcoming in its ordinary rhythm. Memory surfaces, fragment by fragment. The gate, the wax seal, the storm, the waiting flashes that once felt disconnected, now anchor your steps. You remember clearly the anticipation, the sense of responsibility, the feeling that your presence mattered, even when you didn't understand why. The weight of uncertainty lifts slightly with each recollection, replaced by awareness, the task, the purpose, the world waiting for you to act. As you enter the village, the familiar sounds deepen your senses. Voices carry across cobblestones, laughter rings briefly, and the smell of bread baking draws you closer to a small bakery. You pause, taking it all in, feeling the rhythm of life pulse beneath your feet. For the first time since the dungeon, you move not with fear or caution, but with observation, understanding, and choice. From the corner of your eye, movement catches your attention. A figure approaches along the street, the same one from the clearing, the one who awaited your arrival. Their pace is steady, calm, yet deliberate. Recognition flickers, not fully formed, but undeniable. This is the person tied to the purpose that guided you through stone and shadow. The distance between you shrinks. Each step carries the weight of weeks of confinement, every echo of memory, and the lessons of patience learned in darkness. You are aware of your heartbeat, the rhythm of your breath, the alignment of body and mind. Every sense sharpens as you approach the figure, attuned to the world after weeks of stillness. They stop and look directly at you. For a moment, silence stretches, almost tangible. Then, with a subtle nod, they indicate the final piece of the journey, a small gate at the edge of the village leading toward open land, beyond which lies the purpose you were always meant to fulfill. You step forward, carrying the box, the charm, and the fragments of memory. The world seems to hold its breath as you move through the village streets. People glance briefly, continuing their routines, unaware of the significance of this passage. And in their indifference, you feel liberation, the freedom to act, the freedom to choose, and the freedom to reclaim the life that was paused for so long. The gate rises ahead, sunlight reflecting off its worn wood. You approach, every step a reclamation of agency. Here, the waiting ends. The storm is past. The messages, the trust, and the purpose, they converge now. You place your hand on the gate, feeling its solid presence beneath your fingers. It is a threshold, a boundary, a marker of the transition from shadow to light, from confinement to action. And as you push it open, a gentle wind flows through, carrying the scent of earth, rain, and possibility. You step through. The world beyond is vast, open, alive, and waiting. Memory, purpose, and freedom align within you, a culmination of every trial, every uncertainty, and every day spent below in darkness. For the first time, you walk unbound, fully aware of who you are, what you carried, and what lies ahead. Beyond the gate, the world just opens up. Imagine fields stretching out forever, sunlight pouring over the grass and stones, and the distant sound of life carried on the wind. You just stand there for a moment, letting the space settle around you. For the first time since leaving that dark place, the air feels completely yours. It's free, it's expansive, and it's so alive. Memories start to surface, but they're just fragments. Now the gate, the seal, that terrible storm, all the waiting. But they don't hold you back anymore. Instead, they guide you. Each memory is like a thread, weaving purpose into this exact moment. The things you carry, they aren't burdens anymore. They're tools, symbols of a journey that pulled you from darkness into the light. The cloaked figure who led you here just steps aside and gives a single nod. There's no big celebration, no announcement. It's just a quiet acknowledgement that the task, the test, the long wait, it's all over. You survived, you watched, you remembered, and now, it's time to act. So you take a step forward into those open fields. Every movement is deliberate, confident, shaped by weeks of being confined, aware, and so careful. Every single one of your senses is on fire. The rustle of grass under your feet, the smell of damp earth, the warmth of the sun on your skin, the distant sounds of a world that kept moving without you, but somehow never forgot you. The horizon just stretches on, limitless. Your journey isn't about walls or guards anymore. The purpose you carried deep inside, the one that defined every waking hour underground, is now yours to complete out in the open. And for the first time, you truly get it. Freedom isn't just about not being locked up. It's the power to act with awareness, to take back control, to step into a world that asks for nothing but your attention and your choice. You glance back for just a second. The path you walked, from Dungeonstone to village streets, from dark corridors to these sunlit fields, it's all behind you. It's proof of your endurance, your patience, your resilience, but it doesn't hold you there. It pushes you forward. Every memory, every shadow, every trial has shaped the steps you're now taking freely. Ahead, the landscape is vibrant, rolling hills, deep forests, streams catching the sunlight, and distant villages moving in their own rhythm. You take a deep breath, finally free from the fear and uncertainty that held you for so long. The wind rushes past, carrying a feeling of endless possibility. This journey, which began in stone and silence, has reached its end, but it's also a new beginning. You carry memory, purpose, and freedom all at once. The world is waiting, full of opportunities, and you walk into it completely aware, completely present, and completely alive. Step by step, you move forward, leaving the dungeon and the doubt behind. The sun warms your back, the earth supports your feet, and every single breath is a reminder. Survival is no longer enough. You are here, you are conscious, you are free. And with that thought, the story comes full circle. The messenger has arrived, the purpose has been honored. The world, vast and alive, stretches endlessly ahead, waiting for every choice you have yet to make. You just keep walking, Thank you for listening. If this story resonated with you, please consider subscribing for more.